All right, time for our next problem. So in this problem, we are looking for the limit as x approaches 1, and we are looking at f of x being 5 over x plus 3 minus 5 over 4, and that's all over x minus 1. You may have immediately noticed that if we were to go ahead and try to do direct substitution and put that 1 in there, we're going to end up having 1 minus 1, which of course is 0, and we cannot do that. So yeah, we're going to have to do some algebra here, do some more work before we can do that. This problem was selected because it does have those fractions in there, which do tend to make us very unhappy. So we're just going to look at taking those steps to make sure that we get to the right place here. So to go ahead and start, I'm just going to give us a little bit more space here and rewrite, because the first thing that we need to do is go ahead and find a common denominator. And what that means is we're going to have to take everything here from the right and multiply it by whatever we're missing from the left and vice versa. So sorry if that didn't make total sense, but basically over here in 5x plus 3, if we want to go ahead and subtract that 5 over 4, we need to take this 4, which is what we're missing here. We're going to multiply everything here by 4. So we're going to take 5 times 4 and x plus 3 times 4. Now we do the same thing for this side. So over here, the thing that we're missing from the bottom is x plus 3. We have no x plus 3 over here. So we'll take that out, we'll multiply by x plus 3, x plus 3. And there we go. What that allows us to do is, as long as these guys have the same denominator, we can go ahead and add their numerators. So let's go ahead and write that out real quick. So that's going to end up being the limit as x approaches 1 of 4 times 5. And then one big thing to remember too is, so, we have that 4 times 5 right here. You have to make sure that you're using that correct symbol in between. So now that we've finished writing out our term that's on top on this side, we need to include that subtraction, and then we can go ahead and write down the rest of the term on that side. And so that would end up being still 5x plus 3. If you're feeling confident, of course, you can always just go ahead and multiply those out in this step, but just for clarity, we're going to go ahead and write out every step. So from there, we'll go ahead and multiply things out. 4 times 5 is going to end up being 20, and then if we multiply out our x plus 3, we end up with 5x plus, minus 15. All right, awesome. So from there's some pretty easy subtraction here. We can go ahead and subtract that 15 from 20. So that ends up being negative 5x plus 5 and 4x plus 3 and x minus 1. So one thing that also might be kind of confusing is when we have this double divide here, that can be kind of uncomfortable for people sometimes. So another way to think about that is it's the same as saying that we want to actually multiply by 1 over x minus 1. This can also be a little bit confusing, but I personally think it's a lot easier to think about this way. And another thing that I think is important to keep in mind is when we first tried to do our substitution, our problem was that we have this x minus 1 in the bottom. And that's what we really need to try to get out of there. We need that to be either out of the bottom or no longer alone so that we can go ahead and plug a 1 in without having any problems. And you may already see what we can easily do here, but essentially we want to try to factor out this top so that we have an x minus 1 that we can cancel out. And that actually ends up being pretty easy because we can just take out a negative 5 here. And that ends up being x there. And then if we were to take that 5 out of the 5, or I'm sorry, negative 5 from 5, then that's going to be negative 1. And that's over 4x plus 3. And then kind of running out of room here, a little bit extra space. And that's still being multiplied by the 1 over x minus 1. And then there, now we've rewritten it so that we can see that x minus 1 on both the top and the bottom here, we can go ahead and divide those out. And we've gotten rid of it, our icky mess on the bottom that was keeping us from using substitution. So now we're left with negative 5 over 4x plus 3. And we can finally drop our limit and sub in our 1. So we've got 4, 1 plus 3, which ends up being negative 5 over 4 times 4, or negative 5 over 16. Yay! Our final answer. So in these types of equations, just remember that your ultimate goal is to try to make it possible to sub in the number that you're approaching here. So in this case, we're approaching 1. And to also make sure really to pay attention to each step. I feel like this problem ultimately isn't super hard. I think it's just really easy to get caught up in some of these steps, maybe accidentally forget what you can and can't do, or possibly make even just a simple, addition or subtraction error. Maybe you forgot how to handle, this double division. So yeah, just remember to write out each step, and I really think that's going to help you a lot in solving these fraction equations.